This is Joel Markowitz from DCTheaterscene.com. I'm here at Arena Stage with actor Rick Foucheux, who is starring as Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman. Okay, thank you for being here.
It's a great pleasure to be here with you finally, Joel. I know we've been trying to do this for some time now.
Okay, well, Willie Loman is an iconic stage character. Is he someone you've wanted to play for a long time?
You know what? I think that most actors would answer yes to that question. It came up a little bit sooner than I thought it would. I'm only 54. No, actually, I'm only 53. Willie's 63. Of course, Lee J. Cobb was much younger when he did it. I thought that at some point, if I was lucky, I would get to play the role. I didn't realize I'd be this lucky and get to play it here at Arena with this particular cast and this director. So, yeah, I would say that it is something I've always wanted to do. But then there are a lot of things we all want to do. Whoever knows if they'll ever come true. You know?
Like winning the lottery, I assume.
Yes, winning the lottery is one of them. That's high on the list, but it doesn't beat playing Willie Loman.
So why do you suppose that Willie Loman as a character has been so much a part of American culture for nearly 60 years?
I think that's true, Joel, but along with a number of other characters, of course, the play has been with us for that long. I mean, as an iconic statement of what we try to do in America and how we try to live our lives. You know, everybody has received some version of the old saying, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, or what are you going to make of your life, that kind of thing. And we all have to figure that out for ourselves. I think that in Willie Loman and in this play, we see a man struggling with that question, what are you going to make of yourself, in a real naked fashion. And if the theater is there to hold a mirror up to us, and I believe it is, then this is a very uncomfortable mirror. But it's one that, because it's so uncomfortable, we probably hold up rarely. And when we see it in a beautiful piece of literature like this, we say, okay, what kind of, let me take a look at this mirror. What kind of lies have I been telling myself? You know, everybody has their own passel of lies that they carry around with them.
Right. So how did you prepare to play Willie Loman?
Like all of my roles, I just read the play over and over and over again. I must have put in 20 readings of it, before I got to the first rehearsal. And just tried to get it in my bones, just tried to understand him, tried to understand myself through him. I did some reading of some of Arthur Miller's commentary about it and others' commentary. One thing that intrigued me was the statement he says in the first scene that he just got back to Brooklyn after being on the road for 4 hours. It took him 4 hours to come from Yonkers. I've been to New York, but not a lot. And so back in January, I went up there and I rented a car and I drove to Yonkers. And then I came back from Yonkers to Brooklyn down the route I expect Willie might have taken, which was Broadway Avenue. And it took me 2 hours. And I wasn't going 10 miles an hour. I was just in regular mid-morning New York traffic. It was a great way to see the city, by the way, to travel that length of the island from Yonkers down to Brooklyn. And it took me 2 hours exactly. So that was one little bit of hands-on research I did. I felt that something ominous about it because as soon I was driving along, I had my cell phone on but was receiving no calls, and as soon as I got off the Brooklyn Bridge in Brooklyn, my phone rang, and it was Joe Solosevich, our costume shop manager, wanting my measurements. So I thought there might be something ominous in that.
Did you watch the work Lee J. Cobb or Dustin Hoffman did in the role prior to undertaking the role yourself? And if so, what influence, if any, did they have on your work?
I didn't see Lee J. Cobb's performance, but I did see Dustin Hoffman's performance live at the Kennedy Center years ago. And then subsequent to that, I saw the videotape that came out of that production. And I tried to not think about it, Joel. But Dustin Hoffman's such a marvelous, wonderful actor. It's been a little hard to keep him out of my mind in this role. We're different types. I think we're built differently, and I think he had somewhat of a different take on the role. He was a bit more, as I recall, And believe me, when the show's over, I'm going to go back and take another look at it. But as I recall, he seemed to be a little more buttoned down as Willie than I'm playing him. That's not by choice that I'm playing him that way. It's just like so many times when you put a character together, it's as much what comes out of you as what you force to come out of you.
There are several scenes in which Willie goes from the present into the past and back again. Is there anything you did to help audiences recognize the transition, or did you leave it to the writing and the director?
In the first one that takes place, the one that goes from the kitchen scene into the backyard where the boys are waxing the car, there is a bit of a jump that's accompanied by music, and it's the first time a character breaks through these imaginary walls of Willie's memory. And there's one physical movement that I do there that is a bit of a jump out of real life into the past. And after I make that jump, I go from being a 63-year-old man to something more on the order of a 40-year-old man. So I think my posture changes a bit. But by and large, it was something that, I left to the director, and I don't think the audience has a hard time following it, as unusual a writing style as it might have been in 1948. People today seem to be willing to go with it.
Okay. In an interview in the Washington Post on July 9, 2007, do you remember that one, Peter Marks?
I do remember that issue of the newspaper, yes.
You said, quote, "The challenge is to not fall back on an iconic performance, but to create a new character." Do you believe you've done that?
Yes, I do. I think that I can't help but do that. Again, it's the way I approach all my characters. If I were to play Hamlet or Lear, it would be the same thing. I would have to approach it as if it were a brand new play, because it is brand new for me. I've got to find in myself what makes these characters come to life. And each time, and that's what's so beautiful about the theater, each time a new actor gets hold of a part, it is new all over again. Yes, Hamlet was written 400 years ago, and it's a great play, and it's great writing, but the nature of the theater is that when we see it produced anew, it becomes a new play for us. I'm well beyond the point of being able to play Hamlet, but my Hamlet would be different from Delaney Williams's Hamlet or your Hamlet. And that's what's so precious about the theater, is that we don't go see movies over and over again. Sure, there are remakes, and maybe if a movie is remade twice, that we consider that a lot. But look at how many times this play's been produced. Look at how many times Hamlet's been produced. The wonderful, magical thing about the theater is that each time a play is produced, it is like a new production of that play.
Well, just before playing Willie Loman, you played Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof at Olney, and you were terrific.
Another small part.
But you had to sing in that one.
Yes, that's right.
Did playing Tevye help you understand Willie at all?
I think that these two guys are very similar. They are both family men who just want the best for themselves and their families, and they will do anything to get it. The difference is that I think Tevye has his feet a bit more on the ground. Tevye is a bit more willing to realize that life is difficult. Life is hard. I think Miller was commenting in a very leftist fashion to say, in a capitalistic society, what we do is we put these veneers on ourselves to the point where we can't see who we really are. We put this veneer of we must achieve success, and we must do whatever we need to achieve that success. Tevye seemed to be a bit more square-footed, if you will.
Well, how much of the real Rick Foucheux is there in the way you play Willie Loman?
I think there's a lot of Rick in there. An interesting thing, my daughters came to see the show a couple of weeks ago, and of course they see everything I do. And my older daughter, who's 26, Joanna, said that she was usually able to separate me from the roles I play and just enjoy the show. But in this particular performance, I reminded her so much of my father, her grandfather, that it was very difficult for her to watch it. She just kept feeling sorry for me. That wasn't by design, But when I look at pictures of myself, I sure see my dad in them. So just physically, there's a lot of Rick in there and a lot of my dad in there. And an actor struggles, Joel, I mean, probably no better profession to identify with what Willie Loman went through. The highs and lows, the ups and downs, the constant striving, the you're only as good as your last sale mentality. You can't help but bring that to this role. And it provided just a trove of information.
So what's the most difficult scene to play?
Certainly the most difficult one to rehearse and to, quote, get right, not that we've gotten it right and not that we ever will, was scene one. The first scene when Willie comes in and we meet Willie and Linda. Because in addition to all of the usual things you have to do in the first scene of a play, that is, let your audience get settled down, let them get into the world of the play and begin to understand who they're going to be watching and what world they're going to be taking part in. This comes with all the contradictions of Willie and all the strivings of Linda to understand him and to nurture him and to take care of him while at the same time being worried about him. So we have these two very complex characters, Linda and Willie, in right out of the gate, giving us complex information and complex characters. It was very difficult to rehearse.
I understand you're an amateur painter. Is that true?
Yes, that's right. I am a painter, and I'm what one would refer to as a Sunday painter. I've had a chance to do it more frequently in the past than I do now. I haven't been behind an easel in some time now, but yes, it's another of my passions. My wife always says, "Why don't you find something more lucrative to fall back on, like poetry?"
So are there similarities between painting and acting?
Some similarities and some great differences. There have been times in rehearsal when I've come home frustrated and feeling like I'll never get it, and an hour or two behind the canvas gives me more a feeling of control, an art form that I don't have to share with others and can sign off on my own. And then there are times when it's going badly in the studio when I get to the theater and I say, thank God I've got all these lovely people to collaborate with in this art. That's another great thing about the theater, is that it's such a collaborative art, and you have people working together at the same speed, at the same level of intensity to create a common single piece of art. It's really a marvelous feeling. So there are similarities and differences in the painting.
At the same time you're playing Willie Loman, you're also playing a role in the other Arthur Miller production of View from the Bridge, which is playing in rep with Salesman. Tell us about that play and your role in it.
The play is about Eddie Carbone, a longshoreman who lives with his wife and their niece. Their niece has grown into womanhood, and he surprises himself with some feelings he has toward her, especially when they're visited upon by his wife's cousins from abroad, these immigrants who come over. And it's a man who, not unlike Willie, is just trying to every day to put one foot in front of the other, and he finds himself confronted by great powers out of his control, but powers that come from within him. And it's at once shocking to him and to those around him as he tries to decide how he's going to deal with it. My part in this play is as one of his bowling buddies, another longshoreman on the wharf, Lewis. It's a role that helps move the story along, something of a functionary role, but it's quite different from Willie. And I partner with Tim Getman, who plays my son in Death of a Salesman, so we get to have some fun in a different relationship.
How is the Crystal City stage to work on in the new theater?
It's fabulous. It's great to be here. First of all, being in Crystal City is quite a fun proposition. We've gone from the ridiculous to the sublime in our choices for food, for one thing. There are a number of restaurants here, and that's always good for actors. Actors, like food. The stage itself has been transformed in a remarkable way. I've worked in some other theaters that had been transformed from movie theaters into live stage venues, and this one I think is as good as any I've worked in. The sound is great. You can really hear yourself off the back wall. You feel like the audience is really accessible to you, and hopefully you to them. And I think it's a great place to be. We have limited backstage area. For some reason, movie actors didn't require as much backstage area as stage actors do. So we're one big happy family, very close together back there.
Well, what's it like to work with Nancy Robinette, my favorite actress in town, who plays Linda, your wife, Willie's wife, and the rest of the cast? Talk about the cast a little bit.
Well, it's a treat. A lot of us have been friends for a long, long time. Nancy and I have been good friends for a long time. We've done plays together. This is the first time we've ever had a chance to do the dance, as I call it, really be in meaningful scenes together. And I think our friendship and our closeness is an element of the duo that's very important in playing this Willie and Linda necessity to affect one another. I think Nancy and I draw on each other's love for one another and our long history together, and it makes it easy to be up there. Not that the work is easy. It's not. These are difficult roles to portray, but it's easier because of the long relationship we have. Naomi Jacobson and I go way, way back. Delaney Williams and I have been bumming around Washington Theater for the past 25 years, and we've seen it explode and grow, and often's the time when we look at each other and sort of raise our eyebrows and say, can you believe it? How did this happen? Because we can remember like it was yesterday doing theater in the alley behind the Source Theater downtown. So there are a lot of good friends, and the new people we've met, Noble Shropshire, Louis Consalmi, they're just great actors and wonderful people.
Okay, what's it like to work with director Timothy Bahn, who's a Howard University alumnus?
Tim's a great guy. From day one, we hit it off. He was really like one of the cast. He was gentle with us and willing to admit that he was going to discover the process along with us. And he laughed along with us, and he cried along with us, literally. And he brought some great eye-opening revelations to me in this part, and allowed me just to be myself in it. I'll always be indebted to Tim. I think that he gave me an allowance to go in search of the things in myself that could be most meaningful in portraying this character. He was never strong-armed. He was never, this is the way you have to do it. This is the way I see it, and therefore this is the way it will be. We discovered it all together. Many directors are that way. Tim has a sweetness to him and a collegiality that is rare, though.
Okay, well, let's end this really nice podcast.
Congratulations on your good work, and thanks very much for having me in.
That's very nice of you, and I appreciate every time you step on the stage. I'm there to see you. You know that.
It means a lot. Thank you.
Okay, so please personally invite our listeners to come and see Death of a Salesman. Tell them what kind of theater experience they will have.
Come to see Death of a Salesman. Many of you have probably read this play or even seen it before, and I think it's a play that you should see at least once every 5 years. It has a lot of meaning on a lot of different levels, and it's in this production, I think it's one that can't be missed.
Well, thanks very much. Good luck with the rest of the run.
Thank you, Joel.
Death of a Salesman plays through May 18th at